Deep within the forest, danger lurks behind every tree. Welcome to Inwoods, a roguelike survival game that drops you into a top-down forest that's kinda similar to Vampire Survivors. So yes, this is Inwoods, a fast-paced roguelike survival game developed and published by Vision Party. Having released it on the 19th of August last year, it's garnered a very positive rating, with an 84% favourable from over 160 different reviews. The game has received a steady flow of updates since then, with the most recent update literally launching just a couple of days ago. Now before we begin, I just want to say a quick thanks to the team for the sponsor for this video, and now let's jump in to the woods. So before we break down the ins and outs of Inwoods, let's talk about the primary gameplay loop here. You get plonked down into a map, there are 4 different maps to choose from, and you unlock each one after you've beaten the previous. Once you get in, you'll start getting swarmed by enemies, and you have 2 different attacks. A melee attack with your left mouse button, and a ranged attack with your right mouse button. Then you move with W, A, S and D. However, you can remap the controls pretty much to anything you want, and the game is playable with a controller if that's more your thing. Now, so far so good, it probably sounds somewhat safe to you, but let me show you how suddenly your gameplay can go from this to this. So when you kill enemies, you'll get a certain amount of experience points, and eventually you will level up, and each time you level up during your playthrough, you'll get the choice of one of 3 different items. These items can give you anything from different enchantments like ice, poison, electric, fire. It can give you a faster attack speed, a higher critical chance, or it can give you more health, faster movement, better defense, and as you progress and play this game more and more, you'll be able to level up more and more each time you play. So you'll end up with like 35 different items stacked, and it will just look absolutely insane if you have a bunch of different enchantments. So as well as experience points, in each of your playthroughs you will also be collecting wood and coins. So let's focus on the coins first. The coins are spent outside of your playthroughs on upgrades for every single character across the board. You can pretty much upgrade every single stat, so you have physical attack, attack speed, attack area, then you've got your criticals like the chance and the damage, elemental attack, your projectile attack and distance, knockback, stunning, so on and so forth. You've also got defensive like health and defense, as well as others such as the coin drop rate, the wood drop rate, stuff like that. Every aspect of your playthrough can be changed and upgraded, and I think that's pretty cool. So on top of the coins there was also wood, and the wood is used in your playthroughs to craft items when you defeat a boss. So in each playthrough there are a few different bosses, and each boss will drop a lot of coins and a chest. So in the chest you can claim 1 item of 4, which is usually a very good buff of some description, and then it takes you to another screen where you can craft a variety of different items from wood. You will usually have a selection of very good buffs to choose from, which cost a lot of wood to make, and then 5 or 6 smaller buffs that only cost about 80 wood to make. But there is also an item you can pick up beforehand that cuts those prices in half. So as well as experience points, coins and wood, there is also one other kind of collectible in this game, and that's called monster cards. Once you fully complete a level, you'll unlock a new variant of that level, with different buffs for the enemies, enemy movement speeds and increased health. And enemies can now drop monster cards, and these cards can stack and add various different buffs to your character overall, not just for that playthrough, but in every playthrough. So health regeneration, little health boost, attack boost, knockback effects, stuff like that. Each card only gives a tiny boost, but the more you stack, the bigger the boost you get. Once you get this far, you can also upgrade the card drop rate. But if you don't want to have the easier buffs from the cards, you can just turn them off as well. Now before we go any further, if you're a fan of brand new games and upcoming releases, then why not hit that subscribe button and tap the bell to stay up to date with my future uploads. And if you want to be the first to know about everything that's happening on the channel, or you just want to come and talk about some cool games, then why not join my Discord server using the link in the description below. Anyway, let's get back to Inwoods. So pretty much every run starts the same way. You're dropped into a dense forest swarming with enemies, defeat monsters, collect the drops and level up. As you do, you'll pick between new items, skills, and magic items that completely change how your run plays. Enemies spawn in waves, getting tougher as time ticks by, you can stack weapons and spells leading to some really cool builds, and you have to bear in mind that level ups come fast early, but every choice matters, especially as you go later into the game. This constant growth loop scratches that power fantasy itch. You start quite weak, but within 10 minutes, you can be a walking nuke if you've made the right choices. Of course, it's not just about surviving waves. Your ultimate goal is to make it long enough to face and defeat the bosses. These fights can break the rhythm, although sometimes if you've become very powerful, the bosses do just get lost within the mix of all the other enemies you're already fighting. And there were a couple of times as I got later into my playthrough that I didn't even notice I'd killed the boss until I just collected the coins later on. However, the victory feels earned regardless because you face the bosses every single playthrough, and they probably will defeat you early game, so getting them back over and over again as you get more powerful does feel very satisfying. So throughout your playthroughs you will face a large variety of different enemies. As I mentioned, there are 4 different maps, and each of these 4 maps have different enemies that you will face. The first map, being the easiest, has enemies ranging from snakes to large snails to dinosaurs that will lunge at you, and the further into your playthrough you get, the more kinds of enemies spawn. Some of them are reskinned variants of the enemies you face at the start, just with more health, but there are still a large variety to find, such as some rock golems, and later into the game in different maps you have robots, zombies and dragons. On top of a large variety of enemies, you also have 16 different classes that you can play as. When you first boot up the game, you will only have one character unlocked, and that is your standard knight. And then as you make your way through the game and complete a few different objectives, such as dealing 10 million physical damage, or by getting attacked or hit 10,000 times, you will begin to unlock a variety of different characters such as an archer, a spearman, an assassin, a gravity mage, there's a fighter who just punches stuff and throws rocks, and even an engineer with a massive plasma cannon. And depending on your playstyle will depend on which character you like the most. I was a big fan of the characters with a heavier emphasis on range, especially the archer, because that's just my typical playstyle in these games. Being able to stack how many projectiles and angles I fire at once is just very satisfying to me. But there is plenty to experiment with. Each of these 16 characters has one unique melee attack and one unique ranged attack. So for example, the knight will just fight with a sword, but will also just throw rocks as well. The spearman can both stab with the spear and throw a spear, so on and so forth. Now let's talk about the community. Since launch, Inwoods has maintained a small but passionate player base. According to Steam charts, the game averages between 10 to 15 concurrent players, but it has recently peaked at 39 with a record of just under 160 back in late 2024. It's not massive, but for a niche indie roguelike, that's impressive, especially considering it's come from a small team. So how is Inwoods in terms of its design choices? Well, its visuals are simple, but I would say that also makes them quite effective. If you're looking for some big AAA title with flashy graphics, obviously this isn't going to be it, but I think the visuals complement the game quite nicely. The sound effects can get a little irritating, especially later into the game when you're killing so many enemies at once. But for the most part, it's pretty decent. There's a somewhat chill soundtrack that goes on in the background, but when you get later into the game, the sound effects from killing so many monsters kind of drowns it out anyway. However, this can be changed with the settings, so it's really not a problem whatsoever. So let's discuss the strengths and the weaknesses of this game. What makes Inwoods shine, and where does it stumble? Well, in terms of its strengths, it's an addictive roguelike loop with some pretty fast and good rewards. The crafting system adds depth not found in similar games, the boss fights keep things engaging, and the developers are very active with frequent updates and balance tweaks. Now in terms of weaknesses, there are some performance problems, especially on lower end PCs when you get into the late game because so much is going on screen at once, it can be a bit much for some systems. And if you're not super into really grindy games, Some runs can feel like that after quite a while playing through. However, if you're a fan of games like this, like Vampire Survivors, but wish it had more strategic depth, this game is definitely worth checking out. It's easy to jump into for short runs, but has enough mechanics to keep you coming back and experimenting. In the end, Inwoods proves you don't need a massive budget to create an addictive roguelike. It blends survival, crafting, and chaos into a package that keeps you saying just one more run. So if you are hunting for your next indie gem, give Inwoods a shot on Steam. So let me know, what do you think of this game? Do you think you're going to try it? Have you played it already? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap that bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.